When hardcore pornography became much more easily accessible in the 1970s, sexploitation filmmakers were in a difficult spot. Since their audience could now pay money to see the real thing on the big screen, it was difficult to convince them to pay money to see simulations and teases. Faced with this changing landscape, some directors, like Michael Finlay, left sexploitation behind and moved into horror. Some directors, like Roberta Finlay, followed the money and started making hardcore films. But some directors stuck with sexploitation and tried to offer the audience something that the hardcore films couldn't do, or at least didn't do. Russ Meyer offered well-photographed movies that were funny and violent and had dominating female characters who were, busting out of the seams in that Russ Meyer kind of way. And with films like Vixen and Super Vixens, Russ Meyer made a truckload of money in the 70s with this formula. Another director, and one I've talked about on the channel before, Joe Sarno, he also stuck with sexploitation, and he, kind of like Radley Metzger, decided to try to offer the audience eroticism. And it mostly works, as long as you think that a foursome with your mom is erotic. Welcome to Exploitation Reviews, and me, Rob, and today I'm taking a look at Confessions of a Young American Housewife from 1974. As I suggested at the top of the video, there's some kink in this movie, similar to the kink explored in one of Sarno's previous films, Vibrations. Seems to be kind of a thing with this guy, and it was a thing way before every hub video had step in the title. So let's see what he does here. Well, we open on some awkward ladies sitting around a table. Yeah, pretty awkward. And then an awkward man comes in.
Hello.
Oh, yeah.
Seriously awkward. One of the ladies, that's Carol, tells him to take the girl upstairs. The girl thinks Carol is the man's sister, but it turns out she's his wife.
Your wife? God, if my husband found out.
That was pretty funny, and we learned that the couple are swingers. While he's busy upstairs, Carol complains that her mother will be visiting, which will put a damper on their lifestyle. Her friend, Anna, tells Carol it shouldn't be a big deal because this is 1974 after all. The 70s were pretty wild. And it turns out that Anna was right. Mama arrives. That's the lovely Jennifer Wells, by the way. Here she plays Jennifer Robinson. Older woman, Mrs. Robinson? Yeah, we've seen that before. She gets to know everyone and turns in early. She is like super old, you know, so she can't be expected to stay up all night.
She's 37 years old? I bet she's had a lot of bed partners.
37? How old was she when she had Carol? I don't know if that math is mathin'. Well, wait a minute. If she's 37 and Carol's maybe like around 20, then Mrs. Robinson was maybe around 17, so yeah, I guess that can kind of work. Regardless, Mama goes to bed and Carol and Eddie pop over to Anna and Pete's place for some foursome action. Foursome. Yeah, well, you know, lines like that is why YouTube pays me the big bucks. Anyway, I would love to tell you that that foursome scene is hot, but it's really not. The conversation that the four have turns to Carol's mom's breasts, and Anna brings out Carol's O-face by getting her to remember what breastfeeding was like. I warned you, this movie is a little kinky. The next day, Carol's husband puts the moves on Mama. She's tempted, but eventually tells him that she doesn't think that would be right. She packs her bags, planning to leave, but Carol explains that she and her husband are swingers and they're in a foursome with the neighbors, Anna and Pete. Anna and Pete, they were married in real life, by the way. Mama doesn't quite know how to react to this information, but she does decide to stay. And perhaps due to her daughter's liberating take on all of this stuff, when the grocery boy comes by, Mrs. Robinson puts the moves on him.
Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me.
But here our boy isn't as clever, so he doesn't realize what's happening. At least not yet. After dinner that night, the foursome decide to, well, do what they like to do, but this time they stay at Carol's place. Mrs. Robinson hears the sounds and enjoys a bit of the show. A show you can't see here.
Man, I just work here.
And near the end of that show, Anna's husband breaks off from the foursome, goes upstairs to Mrs. Robinson's room, and breaks her off. Okay, so from here on out, we're going to get various scenes that up the sexual tension in the group. Carol and Ann take Mama to some kind of new age tantric guru woman, and Mrs. Robinson's grocery boy will eventually realize what she's offering. The foursome members become obsessed with Mrs. Robinson's allure, and all of this will lead to Carol and her mother confronting some uncomfortable feelings. But that's enough out of me as far as plot goes. Let's talk some highlights. Well, everyone in this movie is gorgeous, especially Jennifer Wells. Whoo-hoo, mama. Well, everyone in this movie is gorgeous, except for this spent piece of used jet trash. Man, that was entirely too harsh. I blame Tom Waits. I've been listening to him a lot lately. Okay, but not only is everybody gorgeous, they're filmed gorgeously. This film is beautiful, which you've probably noticed already. The colors, the framing, the blocking of the actors, just beautiful camera work. And thanks to both the beautiful people and the beautiful camera work, the sexy scenes are pretty sexy. And there are a lot of these scenes. I can't show you hardly anything from this movie. And as a final highlight, this movie is pretty funny sometimes. But beyond the beauty and the humor and the sexy, this film is not perfect. Like everyone in this movie, every 10 minutes, this film has some shortcomings. Well, all of this incestuous drama stuff, it doesn't really do anything for me. I mean, everyone's got their own thing. That ain't mine. But it might be yours, sicko.